Good morning, beautiful. Welcome to my early morning practice with me. To get still with myself and hear what shows up when my mind asks, "Hello, sweetheart. How are you doing today?" And today, I wanted to share about crying, drama, and crying. And I'm sharing about this with you because it's been coming up this week in almost in every call I've had with anyone in really meaningful and profound ways. And in that call, and remembering the fears and the judgments I had about myself when I was crying back then, and noticing how those weren't unique for me and that we all share them. And noticing how I've experienced a practice of crying that, or it developed itself, a practice of crying that has become so meaningful. And we share what works for us, and you do with it whatever you like. So, on crying, when you have difficulty crying, I invite you to notice why. And I use the word notice because noticing is not judging, it's noticing. For example, that sounds like, for me, in my notebook, I write, "I am afraid to cry because," and then I write my list. And my list that's showing up right now is, I'm afraid to cry because it shows that I'm weak, because it's proof that I've failed. I'm afraid to cry because I'll fall into a pit and I won't come out. I'm afraid to cry because that's weakness. I am afraid to cry because I am ashamed for anyone to see me. I am afraid to cry because I look insinuous. I don't know, insinuous, is that the word I'm looking for? And I have the instruction to go get my Kleenex for how insinuous we look. Now, look at this most gorgeous image. This is actually from June. It was just around my birthday. And something happened that made me really, really just overpowered me with anger. And the tears just flew. And this is before the tears took off all my mascara. It was just the beginning. But look at how beautiful this is. I was like, oh, this is, can you see all those details? I'm like, this is a perfect art. I have a friend who makes this really gorgeous art. She's an artist. And she somehow does this black wash with fish. And then she, it's a form of printing. And then she pulls the paper off, and you get every single little detail from this fish. And it is so gorgeous and mind-boggling. You can just be mesmerized by its beauty. I was like, oh, look, I did my own printing just with my mascara. Oh, it's not clear, it's not in focus, but it's just incredible to see every little detail show up, and the screen's not satisfied at the moment. Anyways, I found, wow, this is somehow just so, I've never used a Kleenex like this before. I thought I'd keep it. It's like a work of art. Okay, so when I say noticing and not judging, it's like I write my list. When my mind is traumatized, it's really easy for my mind to get stuck in judging me. Why? Because I'm afraid to be seen. I feel afraid to be seen by myself. Now, for those of us who experience fear on the other side, fear is an invitation to get still. So, I am afraid to cry because, and write your list. And when you notice judgments coming up, judging you for writing the list, or judging what items are showing up on the list, just, that's awesome. Write those down. You might want to use another color. You might want to draw a line and put them in the margin. You know, just so your mind can differentiate and just give yourself permission to free flow. Now, what often shows up, what's been showing up this week in these moments of despair with all of these awesome calls that I received, is that it's like, I've thought I've already worked through that. Okay. So, you know, I believe that too until I work through that statement. And it's like, I already worked through that. That means that it should be done. It should never bother me again. I don't want it to come back. It takes up too much space in my life. It's ruining me. You know, and when I inquired into that thought, it should be done. It's like, it should be done. Is it true? So this thought, for example, on my former husband, I shouldn't have the thought anymore. It should be done. You know, and maybe for you it's your mother. Maybe for you it's your child. Whoever it is. And when I inquired into that, it should be done, my answer was no. That felt more integral. It should not be done. Like, it should be done. No. Is that true for me? No. And when I go into the reactions, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought should be done? I feel anger. I feel resentment. I feel like I am victim to my mind, victim to my circumstances. I feel irate. I feel humiliated because I don't have the capacity to change things that are going on outside of me or the way people talk or treat me. And every time I try, oh my goodness, I feel that failure again. Okay, so I shouldn't, so this should be done. And for me, I notice that this should be done is that same voice that tells me that I'm a failure. It's the same voice that tells me I wasted my time or any other resources I spent in this relationship. It's the same voice that's bossing me around. And sometimes that voice sounds like the person I was in a relationship with narcissistic personality disorder. And sometimes I can really clearly hear that it's my own voice. This should be done. Now, when I sit in that space and witness me, this should be done. I feel in me, it's like like there's stabs going into my heart. I don't know who's doing it. I just feel stabs going into my heart. In my mind's eye, in my physical body. This should be done. And it's not. what I notice is in that moment of self-righteousness, like hearing my mind say, I know that this should be done. And I see proof of the work I did on this topic, the money I spent on this, the people I've met with, the forms of therapy that I've gone through. Okay, the list can be long. Another one that likes to show up is, I'm done with this. You know, I have a client in front of me crying, and they're like, I'm done with this. It's like, sweetheart, you're not done with it. It's still doing you. Okay? That voice, our mind that's telling us where we should be at when we're not there yet, does that bring you peace or freedom? And your answer is personal, and it's only for you. For me, it doesn't bring me peace. And for me, it brings me a lot of anxiousness. And I'm moving pretty quick here, so I invite you to press pause and go back and listen to it again, because we're not done until we're done. I worked statements on my former husband until they left me. Not because I'm obsessive with him, but because I love peace, I love freedom, and I don't let anything come in the way of my peace and freedom. Why? Because I see really clearly how I act differently, and the systems in my life start to get a little weird when I carry around anything that took place to me, on me, with me, or that's taking place right now that bothers me. So I invite me, when I'm in that situation, when I feel like I'm not done yet, it's like, oh my goodness. Notice the difference. You're not done yet. And, oh, I'm not done yet. It's like baking this excruciatingly perfect cake, and you read through the ingredients again, and you're like, oh, I forgot the baking powder. Oh, I forgot the sugar. It's like, we have an intention to make this incredibly delicious cake. Thank goodness our mind scans the recipe again, and we notice that we missed vital ingredients. So our mind is the same way. When we have experienced trauma, we are blessed with a sensitivity. And how you treat the sensitivity is your choice. And I'm saying that, I'm realizing that may not even be true. Because when I had a pattern of behavior, I didn't have a choice. And I judged me for it. And I treated myself bad for it. And now that I have a choice, I see that I can treat it as like the most beautiful, tender, incredible experience that I can have in the world. Again, and again, and again, and again. And it's done when it's done. And it's my job to receive it when it shows up. And it's my job to inquire into those statements that prevent me from seeing it when it shows up. For example, I'm a failure. If I start looking at it, I'll never get through. It takes too much time. Oh, it's really not that important. Whatever it is. Or the other one, it will pass. This is just a phase. Sweetheart, this is your life, and you are the captain of your boat. We don't control the seas. We control the way we navigate them. That's it. And I'm talking about control, not in the sense of bossing and bullying and manipulating. I'm talking about control in a really smart way. For me, means smart, means intelligent. It's like I cut out the middleman. I give myself realization. Action flows. The violence stopped. Okay, so for this crying formula, it's like, let me ask you this. When you're crying, what do you need to feel safe when you're crying? And just get still, be breathed, and notice you when you're in that moment of vulnerability. What do you need when you're in that dark space to feel safe? What do you need to give yourself permission to cry? So what works for me is I like to be warm, cozy, and comfortable. And for me, that means I like to have my bathrobe on, possibly, or a shawl around my shoulders. I like to have warm feet. From that, I love wool socks. I love to be really warm. Often, I get myself a hot water bottle. I love having Kleenexes by me. A lot. It was just like that thought. I should be done by now. It's like, I should have used up. I don't need any more Kleenexes now. It's like, no. You'll need as many Kleenexes as you need. And you'll only know in the future how many that was. So I give myself enough to start out with. And I get really thirsty when I cry, so I love to give myself something to drink. A lot of water. It's kind of like nursing. You know, when you're nursing, it's like you get so thirsty. Same thing. It's like the liquids are leaving the body. Doesn't matter where. Just get me that water, get me that tea, and a lot of it. It's like, Tammy, you don't need more than that. Or, Tammy, how much water would you love to drink? Don't know. Just give me enough. I love this pattern that like shows up of how easy it is for us to boss ourselves around, and how that bossing ourselves around is like what blocks us from working through our trauma. Me, at least. It did. Now I love it. Now I work with it to work with me. I love pillows. I love being surrounded by pillows. And I love feather pillows. They're just so much more like, they just shape my body so well. So it's like, they give me that hug. And you know this, maybe you don't have any pillows, that's great. It's like crying on the hard floor is also perfect. You know, it's just, life changes. And I laugh because that was my life for a really long time. I didn't have pillows. I cried on the hard, cold floor. And that was just like another reason to cry, another wave of tears. Like, oh my God, poor me. This floor is hard and cold. And there's no one here to comfort me. So it's like, you know, the evolution. Okay. So we're done when we're done. And we don't know when that is. That's not our job to know. And not knowing doesn't mean that we're never going to get there. And not knowing doesn't mean that we are going to stuck in it forever. And it does mean that we have babies in our minds that are just hollering for our attention. And we're familiar with fighting them and going into numbing mode and distracting ourselves. We're aware with flight. I always get confused. I find fight and flight, they actually, for me, they're the same actions in my life when I go into either of those, fight or flight. And we know what our effects are when we are there. And I know for me that they weren't satisfying, and that's why I work with option C, and that is get still. And oh, this is perfect, because what I missed on my crying formula is my worksheet. They look like this. This one's in German, and you can get them for free at thework.com. Just download them. There's also an app if you'd rather use your phone, if you don't have a printer. And the favorite thing for me is my notebook. So when I'm crying, I have my tea, my water, hot water bottle, and all those things. You know, I make this really juicy ritual. When my body says it's time to cry, I just do it. It just feels so integral, and I love me for crying, and I love life after I'm done crying, and I love everything that comes up between there. And that comes through the experience of, you know, riding that wave, being caught in it, and then trusting it to spit me out, is my pen. So I notice for me, there's a tendency to cry and just howl and sound as good as I do. And I notice there's a point where the thoughts get really loud, and it's like, I want to write those down. Why? Because I stop the mind on paper. Why? Because I'm done being subjugated to things in my life that I can't change. And these thoughts that show up in that moment are really crucial for this practice. Or not. And then once those thoughts get really loud, then I just start free-flowing whatever shows up. Because that thought that shows up is like, would be like statement number 1 on the worksheet. And then that statement number 1 has a couple relatives. And it's satisfying for me to get all of them. So I think that's all it's said at the moment. I invite you to watch this again. And I invite you to gentleness towards your own thinking, towards the sensations in your body. And gentleness is noticing them. I mean, write them down. I mean, really clearly, for me, what's worked well is the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and then the one belief at a time. So that belongs for me in my package of how I cry. And then going back to that statement that we started with, like, I'm not done yet. It's like, who am I in that moment without the thought, I'm not done yet? I'm not done yet. Without the thought, I'm curious. Without the thought, I'm open. Without the thought, I'm receiving. Without the thought, there's an alternative to bossing me around. There's an alternative to tell me how to do it. There's an alternative to that fear. And I do it for that freedom. And when I go into the turnarounds, I'm not done yet. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm not done yet. It's like so humbling. You know, that voice that bosses us around, that wants to move us somewhere, that distracts from what I experience right now. So I'm not done yet. It's like, hallelujah. I boss myself around. I tell me to move forward. I'm not done yet. It's just asking for some more attention. There's another example in my mind. I'm not done yet. At the beginning, when I started this practice, the worksheets felt really laborious and really heavy. And I was doing a lot with my former husband. And then that left me. And then it came back again. Him as a topic for me came back again. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not done yet. And it's like, are you ready to graduate? It's like, are you ready to take it to the next level? It's like, the gift of not being done yet is there's something that we haven't seen yet. And as long as I'm caught in that self-righteousness, Tammy, you should be done. I'm not willing to receive those gifts of, oh my goodness, I'm not done yet. I'm not willing to witness this house and, stand on the outside with this 3-story long ladder and on this beautiful mansion and clean those windows and get still and witness what's going on inside of those rooms. And that's fine. It's like, I know how I experience life when I don't, and I was ready for an alternative, so I went for that. That humility of our mind is so phenomenal. And I desire a phenomenal life beyond these reactions of trauma. So it's like, I'm not done yet. It's a time where my mind is ready for the next stage of my opening. I'm not done yet. It's like, baby, it's like, how many times did your legs collapse beneath you as you're starting to walk? Again and again and again and again and again. Just a breeze in the room would just be enough to just collapse those wobbly little legs. So it's really the same thing. It's really the same thing. The joy about being a kid is that at that age we don't get frustrated yet. Well, sometimes we do. But we just know everyone's walking around us and our body tells us to walk, so we just do it. That's the same thing with peace. It's like, I have so much pain, my body's telling me to do it, so I just go do it. Or not, and I just enjoy what I have. So, I'm not done yet. It's like the best thing in the world. I'm going in for that second scoop of ice cream. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. There's something begging for my attention, and I'm the only one on this whole planet that can give it to me. It's like, I call our pain our gold nuggets for a reason. We are the only one who can access that wealth through that pain, receiving that pain. Also, bye. I'd love to hear your comments below. Loving you. Enjoy crying. Love to hear about your crying ritual.